Welcome to the CLAT 101 video series, the only video series that we do in order to crack the CLAT exam. This series is hosted by the Focal Point Long Task and Research Center. My name is Sona Gupta and I'm one of the former students for the Focal Point Long Task. I shall be your host for today. So let's get right into it. So for this video, we shall be having three steps. The first step, I shall be guiding you about the correct mindset for solving such type of questions. For the second and third steps, the exam will be telling us about the analysis as well as the subtopics that we need to focus on in order to maximize the score in the CLAT exam, as well as other more entrance. So what is the correct mindset? The correct mindset is to have smart work plus hard work together. We should have a strategy so that we leave no stone unturned. We should learn and implement every single subtopic that we think through. We should do smart work, not downhill. That is why we have to do everything necessary in order to secure the finish line. So for the next two parts, today's will be telling us about the trend analysis and the subtopics that are important for these exams.
Thank you, Soha, for the wonderful introduction. In a minute, I will be telling you which are the most important subtopics as far as the legal reasoning section is concerned, and also I will be sharing with you the best tips and tricks in order to master the legal reasoning section. But before that, please note that it will be useful to classify the kinds of passages which are appearing in the legal reasoning section. So, the passage can be either based on one of the classical legal topics, it can be based on an emerging topic, or you might also get an oddball like you did last year. Now, which subtopics are the classical legal topics? Things like contracts, torts, fundamental rights, basics of property law, etc. can be considered to be classical legal topics. Now, what are the emerging topics? Emerging topics includes things like IP law, labor law, juvenile justice, plea bargaining, so on and so forth. And finally, you can also get some oddballs in the exam. Now, what is an oddball? An oddball is a topic which was not supposed to show up, or nobody expected that topic to show up in the exam. For example, last year you had a passage related to cheating in exams which nobody expected to show up. Finally, let me share with you the best strategy for mastering this section, or what are you supposed to do as a dedicated and hard-working student who wants to crack the CLAT exam. Now, first of all, the first thing that you need to do is to thoroughly cover all the subtopics which have shown up in the previous exams till 2020. Right? That is the first thing you are supposed to do. Be thorough. Be familiar with all the topics which have showed up in the CLAT exam since the year 2020. The number two thing, or the second thing which you are supposed to do as a dedicated student, is also study topics of latest importance. For example, ask yourself, are you aware what is the process for impeachment of High Court and Supreme Court judges? Are you aware of the latest changes in the election laws? Are you aware about the latest developments regarding Article 376? As a good law student, it is your duty to keep in touch with everything that is happening around you. The next best thing you can do in order to master this section is to be thorough and be familiar with all the latest and the best landmark cases, because the factual situation in these cases is transformed and presented to you as a problem question in almost all law entrance exams, including the CLAT exam, right? So, as a law student, I want you to ask yourself, are you familiar with the K.M. Nanavati case? What was this case all about? Why is this a landmark judgment in criminal law as it is practiced in India? Number two, are you aware of the Kasturilal case? Kasturilal is a landmark case related to the topic of negligence. Are you aware what is the factual situation in this case? Are you aware what was the end result? Are you aware what is the legal principle which was propounded by the courts in this case? Now, if the answer was yes, keep it up, you're on the right track, keep at it, and you might just crack the CLAT exam. Unfortunately, if the answer was negative or if the answer was no, maybe you need to work a little bit harder and maybe you will end up cracking the CLAT exam if you work just a little bit harder. Okay, now it's time for me to answer the $1,000,000 question. Namely, which topics in my opinion are most likely to show up in the CLAT exam and therefore which topics should the student cover. Now, if you remember, we have classified the topics which can show up in the exam into 3 categories: classical topics, emerging topics and oddballs. So first let me tell you which classical topics I expect to show up in the next CLAT exam. Please note that I don't claim to have any inside knowledge whatsoever. The recommendations are based upon my years of experience as a teacher and also basic common sense trend analysis. Right? So, the first topic which I expect to show up is torts, negligence, fundamental rights, family law, that is marital disputes aspect of family law, and the basics of criminal law. As far as criminal law is concerned, only theory part is likely to show up. I am not expecting the practical aspects of criminal law like the arrest procedure, remand procedure, bail, so on and so forth to show up in the CLAT exam. Now, I recommend that you as a dedicated law student should focus on the following emerging topics: intellectual property law, juvenile justice, election laws and environmental law. So, I recommend that you should also focus on one more subtopic, and that is labor law. Now, a passage related to labor law has showed up only once so far, and that was related to the history of the trade union movement. Now, chances are it will again show up in the next CLAT exam. As far as juvenile justice is concerned, it was a topic which showed up in the last 2 CLAT exams. So maybe it will show up in the next one also, maybe it won't. As a dedicated law student, you are supposed to cover both grounds. In the situation it does show up and also in the situation it doesn't show up. As far as environmental law is concerned, that is one of the other favorite topics. It has showed up before 2022 but not since. So chances are it might appear in the next CLAT exam. As a smart, dedicated law student who is determined to crack the CLAT exam, you are also supposed to cover topics which have never showed up till date. So, as a good law student, I recommend that you should cover the following topics thoroughly. Number 1, please cover the basics of labor law thoroughly. You should be aware what is a trade union, what are the latest cases related to trade unions, etc., etc. You should also be aware of the basic concepts in labor law, like what is a strike, what is picketing, what is a layoff, what is retrenchment, etc., etc. The next topic which I recommend you should thoroughly familiarize yourself is the whole plea bargaining system in India. You should be aware whether or not plea bargaining is legal in India or is it illegal, in what situations can plea bargaining be used, so on and so forth. Next topic you should be familiar with is the whole powers of the Supreme Court and the whole collegium system. And the last topic which I recommend that you should be familiar with is election laws and citizenship laws. There is a lot of uproar going on presently regarding these 2 things. So chances are very high that they will show up as topics of a passage in the upcoming CLAT exam. So, to summarize, please familiarize yourself with the 4 oddball topics or topics which are likely to show up, according to me at least, in the next exam. Let me try to summarize this whole video for you in less than 2 minutes. So, the first tip which was shared by one of my former students, Soha, was that you need a combination of smart work plus hard work, and donkey work is out of the window. That is the first tip. Second tip is that you have to familiarize yourself thoroughly with certain legal topics. Some of those topics are classical legal topics like fundamental rights and torts, negligence, etc., etc. Some of them are emerging topics like intellectual property law, environmental law, etc., etc. And you also have to be ready for oddballs. That is, you have to be ready for topics which have never showed up in the CLAT exam till date, like labor law or plea bargaining, right? So that is the second tip. Last but not the least, and this will make the difference between you cracking the legal reasoning section or you doing poorly in the legal reasoning section. And that tip is that you have to be thoroughly familiar with the case law for a reason which I will not repeat. At the end of the day, if you are a dedicated law student who is serious about cracking the CLAT exam, I warmly invite you to study with us at the Focal Point Law Classes and Research Center. We have small dedicated batches with personal attention. We have the best in class notes. We have tutors with a good track record, and we also provide regular updates to the parents with one-on-one mentoring sessions if necessary. So, if you are serious about becoming a good lawyer, take the first step in your prestigious legal career and be a part of the Focal Point Law Classes and Research Center. This is the place where budding lawyers and great legal minds are born. And with that, we have finally reached the end of this session. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey of exploring how to crack the legal reasoning section in the CLAT exam. The next video will be dedicated to the logical reasoning section, and similarly it will give you the best tips, tricks and recommendations in order to ace that particular section. Thank you so much for joining. Once again, I'll see you soon.